Cindy, Baker and Amalia are my chill.
You lying, cheating snake! I gave you my heart and my love and my loyalty for 25 years, and this is how you repay me.
Ace of Hearts-Storycast presents The Layover. A 1040 Shorty.
Hi, my name is Roger Rembrandt, but everyone I know calls me Chuck. It's a long story. No, I'm not related to the famous artist. My parents just thought it would be cool to give me the totally unrelated nickname, Chuck. I still don't know exactly why. But I'm used to the questions that my name draws. Anyway, a little about me. I am 52 years old now and was born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. After I graduated high school, I joined the Air Force, earned my way into flight school and flew the KC-135 tanker for several years before separating from the service when I was 30 years old. I then took a job with a major US Airline and have been flying for them for over 20 years. I am a captain and fly the Boeing 777-200ER. My route is from Minneapolis, Minnesota to the city of Amsterdam, which is in the Netherlands. The flight is about 8 hours long one way. My average workday is interesting. I deadhead to Minneapolis on a company flight to meet my co-pilots and crew. As pilot in command, I handle our pre-flight, takeoff, climb out and our ascent to cruising altitude. After a few hours on autopilot, a relief captain takes over the controls until it is time to approach Amsterdam. I then return and handle the approach, landing, and file all of the paperwork. I usually stay in Amsterdam for a few days before flying another 777 back using the same procedure. I complete that cycle twice per month and earn a few $100,000 a year. I know, good work if you can get it right. You needed all of that background to understand this story. When I was just finishing flight school in the Air Force, I met and married Cynthia Corning. We call her Cindy. She was a civilian working at one of the shops on base when I was stationed in Colorado Springs for training one summer. She was 5 foot 2 inches tall, 150 pounds, beautiful black hair, brown eyes, and a fit, curvy body with C-plus breasts. To describe her in 2 words, she was a dream. We easily fell in love and set out together hand in hand to see what life would bring our way. We eventually settled in Milwaukee after I got out of the service. We have a son, Michael, and a daughter, Candace. We call her Candy. They are both in their 20s. After a few years, we moved to the nicest suburb in the area. Cindy dreamed of making a loving and comfortable home for our family, and she has done just that. I never lack love, attention, or affection. Mike and Candy have everything they need and are doing well in school. In the years that I was a junior captain at the airline, I was lucky enough to win a bid to fly an overseas schedule. Cindy and I were just having our kids and we needed the extra money. Eventually, we fell into a rhythm we could deal with and life went on. I am away from home for about half of the month flying around the globe, and every time I return from a work trip, Cindy has the warmest, most sincere welcome waiting for me. Our closeness is regular and very satisfying. Cindy is the most loyal and loving wife a man could ask for, and I am proud to be her husband. And that brings us to JoJo. Let me explain. One day when I was 37 years old, Amsterdam had a run of bad weather that stranded our flight crew there for several days. I was relaxing in the bar at our hotel before dinner when life threw me a curveball. Well, maybe not a curveball. Let's say it was a wave of destiny. In this case, red wine. I was engrossed in a book that I was reading when all of a sudden I was doused in a red, acidic liquid. It stung my eyes. I heard a soft voice asking me if I was okay as I worked to clean red wine from my eyes. When I finally came to my senses and could see again, I saw her. She was 5 foot 7 inches tall, blonde, blue eyes, a very curvy, Coke bottle shape with thick thighs and double D breasts. She was working on me with a set of napkins and paper towels to clean the wine up.
Are you okay?
She asked repeatedly.
I'm very sorry. I tripped on the carpet as I was bringing a couple of glasses of wine to the table next to you.
She was near tears. Yes, I'm fine. It's okay. I'm not hurt. I replied, trying to reassure and calm her. I'm Chuck, I said as I extended my hand.
My name is Johanna, but everyone calls me JoJo. I'm the night manager here. Are you a guest with us?
She sat at my table and I explained who I was and why I was there. She was very nice and understanding. Her perfume had a sweet scent. Her sultry voice added to her mystery. My clothes were soaked with wine, so I decided to go upstairs to change before returning down to the restaurant for dinner. JoJo personally brought my dinner out from the kitchen and sat with me. She said she felt really bad and wanted to comp my meal and drinks for the night along with dry cleaning my clothes. Just then, 2 glasses of Merlot appeared at the table and she took them both. We sat and talked as I ate. JoJo was 35 years old, had never been married and did not have any children. She was the daughter of the hotel's owner and was actually in charge of all 11 of their hotel properties. She was just filling in on that night because she still likes to work with guests even though she is the boss. It was 8:30 p.m. I had called Cindy earlier in the evening before dinner. Milwaukee is 5 hours behind Amsterdam time-wise. I have to admit, we drank a lot of wine at my table. At around 10:40 p.m. I eventually bid goodnight to Jojo and stumbled up to my room to get some rest. It would be at least another 3 days before our crew would be clear to fly home. I got to my room and jumped in the shower to wash the smell of wine off of me. When I emerged, I changed into my PJs and started getting ready for bed. I was still quite a bit buzzed, but I felt good. Then I heard a soft knock at the door. I opened it and there stood Jojo.
Hey, I forgot to have you sign your dinner check.
I stood aside and let her in. I sat on my bed to grab a pen. That is the last thing I remember clearly. When I woke up, it was morning. My head was killing me. I tried to figure out what happened. The last thing I clearly remembered was my face being buried in Jojo's bosom. I also remembered the sweetness of her strawberry-flavored lip balm. Also, my face was glazed over with what could only be female arousal fluid. I had plenty of experience with women before I got married and knew what it meant to get my face glazed. I then remembered flashes of Jojo being in my bed lying on top of me. She was nowhere to be found. She left a note and her number. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, I felt amazing physically. That feeling was in direct conflict with a pressing feeling of guilt from inside of me. I knew I had cheated, but I also failed to see the actual harm done. I was so drunk, after all. I showered and called Jojo. We talked for about an hour. I wish I could tell you that I told her whatever happened between us the previous evening was a one-time mistake and that it could never happen again. I wish I could tell you that Jojo happily accepted that logic and we both happily went our separate ways. But that's the thing about wishes, they are normally part of fairy tales. This is real life. Jojo came back the next night and this time neither of us had more than one glass of wine. We enjoyed every kind of pleasure a man and a woman could possibly experience. And yes, I got my face glazed again. Ditto for the next night. I told her I was married. She was okay with it and was not looking for any kind of commitment. She said she really liked me and didn't need anything from me materially. She was already very well off financially and had a fulfilling career. And so began my affair. I cleaned myself up very well before flying home after that first encounter with Jojo. But Cindy didn't suspect anything. We reunited as normal. After a week, it was time for me to head back to Amsterdam. When I returned to the hotel, Jojo welcomed me and we spent 4 days loving each other intensely before I returned home. That went on for about 6 months. One week, when I arrived back in Amsterdam, Jojo came right over to see me.
Chuck, we need to talk.
She said with hesitation. What's up? I replied.
Chuck, I'm pregnant.
She replied flatly.
I must have missed a pill sometime during your last visit. What are we going to do?
Time seemed to stand still for a beat or two, and then my subconscious took over. I took her in my arms, kissed her deeply and told her that I wanted her to have my baby. She cried tears of joy as she held me close. And thus, my second family was born. 9 months later, we welcomed our son, Baker. He was healthy and a real porker at 9 pounds, 6 ounces. A year after that, we welcomed our daughter Amalia, named after Jojo's grandmother. She was a perfect sweet little bundle of joy. Jojo bought a luxury flat in the city center and I stayed there whenever I was in Amsterdam. I still checked into the hotel and made sure I was seen there so my crew wouldn't notice anything amiss. I never flew with the exact same crew, so that was never really a problem. I also left my cell phone in my hotel room before heading to Jojo's place. I kept a local Amsterdam cell phone at Jojo's. When Baker and Amalia were born, my kids with Cindy, Michael and Candy were 10 and 8 years old. After some adjustment, life found the perfect rhythm. I was home 16 days per month and in Amsterdam for the other 14 days or so depending on the month. I rarely missed birthdays, recitals or other important events for either set of kids. I loved both Cindy and Jojo with intensity and never let either one of them feel neglected in any way. Before I turned around, 13 years had gone by. Cindy, Jojo and I were all approaching our 50th birthdays. Michael was 23 and about to graduate college with a double major. Candy was a 21-year-old college senior. Baker was 12 and Amalia was 10, about to be 11. I know it sounds like a lot, but keeping up with 2 women and 4 kids honestly didn't feel like work. I had completed my job with Mike and Candy. Cindy and I were settling into life as empty nesters. My life was a well-oiled machine. Until it wasn't.
Hi, it's Cindy Rembrandt. My relationship with Chuck was right out of a custom-ordered dream. I had married a handsome airline pilot and military hero. He was stable, hardworking and loving. I couldn't ask for a better husband or father to our children. We had been married for 24 years, fully raised 2 wonderful children who were now both on their own, and nothing seemed amiss. Then everything changed. One of the wheels on Chuck's suitcase broke as he was leaving the house and he had to switch it out for mine. After he left for the airport, I was checking his old suitcase before I threw it away. That's when I found it. It was a poem. Hold on, I'll grab it and read it for you. Dear Dad, thank you for the wonderful birthday gift. I love you and could not ask for a better father. With love, Amalia. It was definitely a child's handwriting. Where could it have come from? Could it be from a passenger who asked Chuck to give it to someone on board the plane? I thought about calling Chuck and asking him about the note, but I decided to wait. When Chuck returned, I took a good look at him. He seemed perfectly normal. Nothing was amiss in our financials. His work schedule was rock solid. He flew to Amsterdam, stayed around 4 days and came home. Wash, rinse, and repeat. I was about to let the whole thing go, but it just kept nagging at me. Who is this Amalia? I feel kind of guilty about this, but I placed a bug in Chuck's phone one week when he was home and just waited. It might be nothing, or maybe I'll get some kind of an answer. Fast forward 3 months. The data on Chuck's cell phone was as normal as could be. Home, plane, hotel in Amsterdam. Then, plane and back home. Trip after trip. Then the next trip, I got a hit.
On one trip, in early spring, I was in a rush to get to JoJo's because Baker had a soccer game and I wanted to make sure I was on time. I dropped my luggage and shot out of the door to catch a rideshare. We enjoyed the game, had a cozy family dinner, and JoJo and I had great closeness after the kids had gone to bed. The next afternoon, as JoJo and I were getting ready to go shopping, I found something in my suitcase. My cell phone. I forgot to leave it in the hotel room. JoJo and I ran to the hotel on the way to the mall and I tossed it on the bed.
Cindy again. The bug I put in Chuck's phone told me that he was at a residential address in Amsterdam. I made note of the address and began my search. The flat was owned by a Johanna Jansen. Okay, now I had a name to research. I then tried to access public records online. No luck, online access is restricted. Then I had an idea. I downloaded a program that searches for people on all social media networks and platforms. I nervously entered the name Johanna Jansen. Bingo! I had her Instagram and Facebook profiles. They were set to private. Nothing a fake profile couldn't fix though. I created a profile in the Netherlands using a VPN and requested her. She added me. I searched her profile page and found what I was looking for. She had a daughter named Amalia and a son named Baker. I accessed her pictures. There they were. They bore a striking resemblance to my husband. I felt like the floor beneath my chair opened up and swallowed me in that moment. But I held it together. I still wasn't 100% sure. I needed a plan. Chuck would be home tomorrow. I need to finish pulling myself together and think. By the next morning, I knew what I needed to do.
As I flew my passengers back to Minneapolis, I kept thinking about my cell phone blunder. I put it out of my mind. Besides, Cindy never suspected a thing for all of these years. We had a great reunion as usual. I visited both Mike and Candy at their colleges. Both were within 2 hours' drive of our home. After a week, I prepared for my next trip back to Amsterdam. When I arrived there, I made sure to leave my cell in the hotel and headed to JoJo's to reunite with her and our kids. We were enjoying our evening after dinner when the doorbell rang suddenly. JoJo had run to the store to get us some ice cream and took the kids with her. I was reading a book in my study. I answered the door. My heart jumped into my throat.
Cindy here. That next morning when I woke up, I called another airline and booked 3 tickets to Amsterdam. Chuck came home and everything was routine. I made sure of it. I didn't want him thinking that I knew anything. When Chuck left for Minneapolis, I gathered Mike and Candy up and told them we were flying to Amsterdam to visit their father. They were very excited. We landed in Amsterdam about 24 hours after Chuck arrived. We checked into a hotel near the airport and rested. The next day, we took a rideshare to the address of Johanna Jansen. I had the kids wait for me nearby while I rang the doorbell. He was there, I could feel it. I then motioned for the kids to join me at the door. Chuck then opened the door and we were all standing face to face.
After getting over the initial shock, I knew the jig was up. What could I say? Hey, I didn't get to tell you about my second family. My bad. Cindy was standing right there on JoJo's stoop. Mike and Candy were standing behind her with uncertain looks on their faces.
What is going on here, Chuck?
Cindy spoke with annoyance. I opened the door and told them all to come in. The kids took seats in the living room to wait. Cindy and I went into the study to talk.
What is this place, Chuck? Who are these people?
She said as she pointed at the many photos of JoJo, Baker, Amalia, and I on the walls. Tears started welling in her eyes. Cindy. Baker and Amalia are my child. Before I could get the answer out, Cindy hit me in the face with so much force that my 2 front teeth came loose. I immediately hit the ground. Cindy then began kicking me in the face and neck area as she screamed.
You lying, cheating snake! I gave you my heart and my love and my loyalty for 25 years and this is how you repay me.
She then began kicking me in the groin with all of her might. By that time I was nearly unconscious. I cried and moaned in excruciating pain. After what seemed like an hour or so, she ran out of energy. But it had only been a few minutes.
Just stay here with your whore and your bastard kids. I never want to see or talk to you again.
With that, she left the room, gathered Mike and Candy and exited the house. A few minutes later, JoJo came in with the children after she arrived back from the store. Baker and Amalia had retreated to their rooms to clean up for dessert.
Chuck. Chuck.
She yelled as she tried to get me to respond. She called an ambulance. The next thing I remember, I was in the hospital. A police officer was waiting for me to regain consciousness.
Mr. Rembrandt, what happened to you?
The officer asked. The last thing I remember was opening the door after the bell rang. I told the officer. I honestly don't remember anything else. Whatever Cindy had done, I knew that I deserved it. I didn't want her arrested. The police logged the incident as a home invasion gone wrong and filed their report.
Cindy here. The kids and I gathered our belongings and took the next flight back to Minneapolis that evening. The next day, I went to see a lawyer. I was surprised to see how little the fact that my husband had a whole second family would impact our divorce. That's the magic of no-fault divorce laws, I guess. Mike and Candy were adults in the eyes of the law, so there would be no custody or child support issues. Property division was the only big deal to work through. A few days later, a lawyer representing Chuck contacted me. She asked for my lawyer's info, and I gave it to her. Chuck offered me a straightforward divorce settlement. We exchanged his half of the equity in our paid-off $400,000 home for my half of his airline pension. The kids' college funds were already fully funded. Chuck might have been a slimeball relationship-wise, but he provided for us well financially. A few days later, I received a letter from DHL. It was from Chuck. I opened and read it.
Dear Cindy, I'm sorry for the painful way you had to find out about my terrible secret. I want you to know that I told the police that a stranger caused my injuries during a home invasion and the police closed the case. You are in the clear. I cannot explain or answer the question you probably want to know the most. Why? To be honest, it just happened. JoJo just swept me off of my feet and I could not give her up. I have no excuse. You did nothing wrong. You were the perfect wife, lover, and friend. I am ashamed and I know what I have done is unforgivable. I just didn't know how to tell you. My lawyer will work with yours to facilitate our divorce settlement. After the divorce is final, I intend to retire from the airline and permanently relocate to Amsterdam. I am offering fair terms. I only ask one thing from you. Please don't allow Mike and Candy to hate me. Despite what I did, you know that I have been an excellent father to both of them. I will do whatever it takes to mend my relationship with them, but I realize that it will take time. Again, I am very sorry. I wish you all of the best. Chuck.
And with that, 25 years of marriage ended. I received the house, cars, and half of our liquid assets. Chuck kept his full pension and the other half of our liquid assets. I also received control of the remaining funds in Michael and Candy's college accounts, around $1 million. I didn't require alimony or child support. Chuck's generosity in the divorce settlement has me set for life financially. I guess I can't complain about that. At least I got the satisfaction of beating the living shit out of him. I'm still young enough. Maybe in time, I'll find love again.
Cindy's beating left me with a broken jaw, broken left arm, broken eye socket, and multiple deep bruises along with several painful contusions. I also lost a testicle and 5 of my teeth, including my 2 front teeth. I required 2 full months of leave to recover from my injuries and needed 2 surgeries to restore my appearance. I deserved it. I hired a lawyer to represent my interests and wrote Cindy to ask her to please not allow Mike and Candy to hate me because of what I did. JoJo took very good care of me during my recovery. I was able to return to work after I completed a brief recertification course and a check ride. I told JoJo that I would be getting divorced from Cindy and would retire in a year to move permanently to Amsterdam. After her face flashed some initial surprise, she seemed happy with the decision. 6 months after Cindy's beating, our divorce became final. I continued to commute from Milwaukee from a small rented apartment as I worked to mend my relationships with Mike and Candy. It was hard at first, but we are forging a way forward and communicating well. I think they gave me a chance because I protected their mother from being prosecuted for my beating. Plus, I was very generous to her in the divorce. As my retirement date approached, I prepared to move to Amsterdam. My investments had done well and I was pretty much set at age 52 for a pretty laid-back retirement. Baker and Amalia would be off to college soon in JoJo and I seemed to be getting ready for our next phase of life together as she prepared to retire from the hotel chain. I was scheduled to arrive in Amsterdam for good on Wednesday, October 5th, but I decided to get there on Monday, October 3rd as a surprise for JoJo and the kids. I had already shipped my belongings to JoJo's place a few weeks ago and they arrived last Friday. I got out of the ride share in front of JoJo's flat, grabbed my suitcase and used my key to open the front door. I heard voices inside. Nothing unusual though. The voices were laughing and talking. I heard JoJo, the kids along with a male voice. It was deep and joyful. Then I heard Amalia exclaim, "Oh, Papa, you are so funny." I walked toward the sound of the voices and found myself in the living room. JoJo was sitting in the lap of a handsome guy who looked to be in his late 40s. The kids were situated around the coffee table as they all played a board game. Baker saw me first, he froze. Then JoJo saw me. She jumped out of the man's lap as fast as a cat would. Her face turned as white as a sheet.
Chuck, oh my god. You're not supposed to be here until Wednesday.
I was speechless. All I could manage to get out is why. Who? JoJo and I had the kids tested years ago and they are 100% biologically mine. So that wouldn't be the issue. Plus they both look just like me. I pointed at the guy and after a few awkward beats, JoJo spoke.
Chuck, this is Brendan. He is my husband.
The end. We hope you enjoyed this presentation of The Layover, a 1040 shorty. As always, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and follow Ace of Hearts Storycast.